Oh, that's more like it. I need to turn that down there. All right. Well, hello. Good morning. Oh, Brenton. Hello. Great to see you. Let me get my screen back up. There we go. Let me do a little salutation. Brenton, good morning, Warren. I don't have an Easter theme there, but happy Easter to you, my dear friend. Great to see you. Jose, buenos dias, ¿cómo está? ¿Qué paso? Sonia, how are you doing? Guten Nacht, whatever it is. Getting ready. Just threatening. Not kidding. William, good morning to you. How are you doing? Look at that photo. Love that. All right. Chris, you're like a perennial ball of awesome, my friend. So, I've been kind of off in Tonex world, for those of you that have not seen. Albert, holy cow, what's going on, my man? I'll try not to take it easy. How about that? I'm missing the S series. When is it coming back? You're bringing it back. There you go, my man. Mike Rand, what's going on? And John Mello, what is the K stand for? Did I ask you that before? Killer. All right. Now, when you do an upward bar, you got to remember the teeth there, like you're angry at somebody. Probably not good for the teeth, but in any case, Braxel, what's going on, my man? All right, today, hey, Jason Price, what's going on, my man? That's kind of a rush thing, right? In any case, today is, Tony, what's going on, my man? Great to see you. Hello. All right, before we go any further, gosh darn it, we should probably, what a night it has been, let me tell you. Where is my proverbial raise 'em up? There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Let me put that right there. It is time to raise 'em up. Let me know down in the chat where it is that you're coming from and what it is that you're drinking. I'm drinking my Optavia shake with some peach in it. As Chris Alexander will know, I was up very, very late. There's a Counting Crows song in there. Finishing this Tonex video. For those of you that are Tonexers, there's Generation Y and Generation X, and then there's Tone Xers. But there's been a new update, and so one of the things is that, first of all, I'm a fan of pretty much any piece of gear because I kind of fall in love. I kind of like a kid with a puppy. You bring it home, you're like, look, Mom, I got a new puppy. Isn't it cute? Because ultimately gear, and this ties in today's topic, which is flow. It's a funny thing. Hang on, there we go. And I can see the comments now. There we go. Kenneth, there we go. Jason, always a pleasure. All right, Speed Demon. All right. Okay, good. Ohio, there we go. What's going on, Ron? So, hey, hold on. Brett, what's happening? Gotta lean into that. And a happy Easter to you and y'all who are just tuning in here. Okay, first of all, pleasure. I've missed you, my friend. Great to see you. I trust everything is going great in the Ville of Nash. All right. Thanks so much, Chris. Fortunately, I didn't drop before the video did. Albert, Pete and I can see the Berkeley Hills even though it's overcast. Lucky you. I guess I can see the backside of the Berkeley Hills where I am, which is kind of cool. Although in the gear garage, the only thing I see, thankfully, is you. Griffin, good morning to you. Hello. Happy Easter. Hold on. And move there. There we go. Okay, so here's the deal. I have been on a journey, and Griffin, I'm actually really glad that you're here. So I'm going to take a small, I hate to use the word deviation because it sounds so wrong. In the process of mining material for 15-minute fundamentals, it's very clear that setting up the verticals, person feedback, great feedback that I got here, which is like for each of the kind of the primary 5 days of kind of the different things you might work on. Single string, pentatonic modes, theory, ear training, so on and so forth, that there has to be primary, secondary, tertiary workouts such that as you kind of go through the course, in theory it ramps up. And in so doing, hang on a second, Matt King. I don't even know what that is. That's the woo-woo-woo, the whoop-de-woo, right? It's like the wind. Mixolydian there at the end there. Okay. Armando, hello. Buenos dias. Okay. So, Gear Whisperer, what's happening? So here's the deal. In the midst of needing to actually put a little bit of extra bread and butter on the table, I have decided to move ahead and do a pentatonic course. Why? I know I sometimes change courses, but it's because it allows me to do what I need to do, and in this particular moment of my life, and this all ties in together because we're going to talk about getting your flow on. The idea of core exercises and building that regular foundation of practice without playing makes Jack or Jill a dull, boring girl. So there's got to be that balance of the playing and the practice, because the practice informs your hands. And in turn, that loosens you up and prepares you and builds your confidence to get your flow on. Flow is ultimately the thing that enables us to play something that we haven't necessarily played exactly the same way before. And I'm talking to you. You know what I'm talking about. Regurgitated lick number 256, right? We all do it, right? And when we kind of go, hey, I'm not doing the same crap over and over, guilty as charged, we kind of go, oh, that was kind of getting to the flow. And it's an interesting thing as I've been working with my students. How do I help them do the same thing that I'm trying to do with myself? And so we're going to talk through some of the principles of that. But the integral part of that is practice. And as I've been practicing, working on material for 15-minute fundamentals, kind of going, man, to make this right, classic Doppler, it's going to take a little bit more time. And I also am making sure that all the exercises that need to be inside all those things, I can actually play them. And in the process of doing this, I'm learning things as a student so I can share them as a teacher. Pentatonic is a little bit more straightforward, and it allows me to kind of cast a net for potential students, because I view what I do professionally as a teacher, I don't view it as customers. I think of it, I almost said customers, but that's really not my heart, students. And in the marketing, I'll probably say, I'm not looking for customers, I'm looking for students, people that are passionate about the same thing that I'm passionate about. We get a chance to come together. So the thing about the pentatonic is that there's so much great stuff about it, and it's taught in varying degrees. For example, none of the courses that I have secretly spied over the wall on actually can say what makes the minor pentatonic scale minor, which we, of course, because you've been hanging out here from Theory Geek Thursday, which is coming back real soon, is the fact that basically inside the minor pentatonic, 3 of the 5 notes make up a minor triad, which is why you're going to play the minor pentatonic. That 1, flat 3, and the 5 are the resolution tones. That 1, and when I hit the 5, that 1, flat 3, and 5, there are the sweet notes. And then you're like, could you please resolve? So if you don't know that it's the 1, flat 3, and the 5, you don't know that it's the 1, flat 3, and the 5. So chances are you, like a lot of players, play the same cut and paste, fill in the blank lick, and you go wheedly, 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 boom, and boom sometimes lands on the right note, and boom sometimes doesn't land on the right note. And so kind of working with the pentatonic and working with this concept of flow, I spent some time hanging out with my students yesterday working on basically a very simple, this is not the greatest clean tone in the world, an A minor and a D minor. And if you look at the notes of an A minor triad, it's A, C, and E. And a D minor triad are D, F, and A. Oh, my favorite naughty saying, D, F, and A, dude. And if you think about A, C, and E, and D, F, and A, the only note that they have in common is the A. So it means as you're playing an A in the bass, that note is a great note to end your phrases on over both chords. The thing is the other 2 notes from that A minor chord, they build tension over the D. And so having an understanding of the theory behind the minor pentatonic allows you to actually use one of the most groovy scales ever. You can shred with it, you can play it pretty. But there's your 1, A, C, and and once you kind of have an understanding of the very basic theory that's happening underneath the hood there, it means you can actually leverage that. And so helping players kind of use that to know is like, hey, you know what, over that, when it goes from the A chord to the D chord, the D, F, and A, or in terms of the notes out in the minor pentatonic, that D and A are going to be great resolution tones for that D minor or D minor 7 chord, having a sensibility around it. And so the modes take that and they make that a little bit more complex because you're going from 5 notes to 7. So kind of working with the widest range of students, kind of saying, come on in on the pentatonic, and then being able to kind of say, hey, we got some other stuff going on afterwards, I think is a win for everybody. I feel guilty because, you know, I've changed course a little bit, but sometimes it's for the overall best outcome and having a better strategy. And strategy, Eric Martin Bureau, happy Easter, my friend. Look at that photo. How is good old Fort Mac, Canada, above the border? All right. Hold on, it's just a tribute. That's got to be, I must have missed something, but I love that. Okay. James, hello, hello. Terry, hello. Hello, everybody. Okay, so here's the deal. A teacher's work is never done, Mr. Alexander. Shoot, brainstorming. All right, so here's the thing. Flow. One of the things is the practice in terms of getting your flow together. If you're kind of on top of the things that are on your regular practice routine, it's the equivalent of going to the gym, maybe doing the treadmill and doing some, kind of free weights, right? And then there is, kind of some specialized stuff like, all right, today I'm going to work on this other thing. That's one of the great things about, I'm still actively working on 15-minute fundamentals, and there's all these peripheral lanes that I live in, and I'm specifically working on the techniques that are hard for me to do. And in so doing, I've noticed what I call overflow from the things that were hard to do that are becoming easier to do and ultimately easy to do into the things that I'm already doing and doing those better. And so there's a technical side to getting your flow together that hanging out with the metronome and just running your scales, it does so much because it builds your confidence and it also builds your muscle memory. And the great thing about muscle memory of things that you already practice and already know is somehow it builds the confidence muscle to try things that you don't know and move into other areas of the neck. I also have a great exercise for each of you that I stumbled into this past week. I got to flip my hair, pardon me. And by the way, I've got to get out of here a little bit early. I've got an 11 o'clock rehearsal, but I will do my best to make it worth your while. So the deal is, most people box themselves into certain locations on the neck. And one of the things I'm really working on doing is finding some different pathways to move around and not just connecting this 3-note per string shape to that one or to that one or that one, maybe going up one, down the other, up one and down the other. But the idea is like, how do I take these ideas and move them around? I'm going to start with the minor pentatonic, actually, and we're going to kind of work back into this little exercise here, this CD thing. But the deal is, if I were to take the E minor pentatonic, whose notes are going to be E, G, A, B, D, E, and back to G, A, B, D, E, G. If I take this little shape, starting off the A, and I go to this A, I can take that same shape, and I can literally cut and paste that same shape. Guitar in hand, I'm at the 12th fret and the 14th fret on the 5th, 4th, and 3rd strings. And I'm literally cutting and pasting that same shape and bringing it down to the 6th string at the 5th and 7th frets, 5th string, 4th string. And now all of a sudden, I've got a new way to play that. And if I can find another A, I need a truss rod adjustment. But I can take that same shape and that offset with the 2nd string there. And I draw play that there, and any place I can find an A that I have 3 strings worth of placement. How about a B? So on and so forth. And now all of a sudden, although I am kind of doing the equivalent of taking a lick and moving, it's synonymous with we're in A. We're in C. We're taking it and moving that around. However, we have the freedom to now utilize different registers. Excuse me, and in turn, unpacking the neck in these different registers allow you to get out of the same rutted paths that you're in. C and D. Hate me later, by the way. So the idea is da 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 da. 8 note triplets. 1, 2, 3, 2, 3. So basically, you have to go, and I just started doing this yesterday, but I'm like, C and D seem to be a logical place to start the first 2 notes of the C major scale. But basically, go C, D, C. Holy God. Only got, oh no, I got it up here. See. But that will bust your chops. And the deal is, if we're thinking about, let's say we're in the key of A minor. Hang on. Let me bring up my track here. We're going to be in the key of E minor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, I'm going to do E, G, E. Sorry, E, G. It's all right. And the idea is now I can use those different registers to free up the neck and increase my flow. Let's see how I do. I'm going to start to connect them. I'm aiming for them. Apple Music, I hit the stop button and you don't do anything. All right, so the deal is, then what I started to do is I started to get a little crafty. At least I think it's kind of crafty. I'm like, hey, instead of playing it on the, E, G, E. I was like, well, what if I play it on a Jason's ring? Kind of more like we would there at a pattern number 1 on the minor pentatonic. And anywhere, I can do that. Now, all of a sudden, the way I'm using the knowledge of the notes and the way I'm using the neck, I can kind of begin to get away with playing the same sort of lick I did. The other thing is I'm starting to get a little persnickety and working with octave shapes. And kind of once you kind of start trying, you kind of go, well, I guess, I don't know, I'm going to do it until I can. You fake it until you make it, right? And so, you know, if you're looking at just a great place to start, again, we had our CDC, we had our EG business there. But if you were to take the G major scale, whose notes are G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, and G. No, sorry. Let's see if I can call out C. Sorry, G, A, G, B, G, C, G, D, G, E, V, F sharp, G, G. This time not calling it out. And after a while, you kind of go, well, that's not that hard. And I got to tell you, if you're kind of on stage, you know, it kind of looks good. Right? I'm just like, holy cow. And, you know, it's the sort of thing, the other thing you can do. That's G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, G. And I kind of did that. Kind of did in a kind of a, adding a little extra stereo stuff, right? And you start messing around with that, and it's just kind of, you just break out of the box. That's about flow. All right. Now, keeping the train on the tracks here. Hold on a second. Okay, hang on a second. That's hilarious. Sonny, good morning. As I was kind of prepping this morning, I did see something come through on Messenger, and I didn't get a chance to click on it. I have a feeling what that may be about, but I will check. Always a pleasure, my dear friend. Nice to kind of be in the groove there. Dee Dee, you going to get a Dave Mustaine Les Paul. As of right now, okay, a little bit of side news. I'm going to jump back into it. And by the way, Steve, good morning, my dear friend. Always a pleasure. Cheers. So, strategy. It's a funny thing. So, I have gotten a piece of really good news. Oh, let's see if there's a prop around here that I cannot drop. This is a sample. And actually, it is kind of a eco-friendly, except for, I guess that's probably not eco-friendly, but this was kind of the second pressing of this CD. And so, as I think I mentioned last week, we've had the masters. It was mastered by Bernie Grundman, and so I'm getting ready to launch a whole 2-album campaign on Spotify for the instrumental album and the vocal album. So as I got onto Spotify, I realized my first album's not on there. And I was like, I've got a guy, Chris Greenwood, who is kind of my Spotify coach, and I'm studying Spotify, and he's teaching me some really, really cool things. And so one of which is kind of utilizing, you know, launches of songs to kind of help stimulate the number of streams you've got on your Spotify playlists and so on and so forth. But using this first album as a vehicle to, first of all, connect with people that might be interested in it. It's not available anywhere, so it's going to be available. And we still have, like many of you that might have pressed some CDs back then, we still have some CDs, which is going to help us kind of put a little bit of money in the kitty as well. If anybody wants to buy one of those or a new instrumental CD as well, we can also do the art of the bundle. So we're, the idea is we're trying to actually become a profitable music business as opposed to one that just spends money, dare I say, pissing it out in every direction, utilizing today's operative term, flow. I have perfected that science. Now we're working on doing things where, as a professional musician, I can hopefully embrace my community and say, can you help support what it is that I'm doing? And get comfortable with that. Because asking people for money, I don't know about you, when was the last time you say, hey, can you give me some money? Your hard-earned pay? It's just not really kind of my thing, unless I'm working for it. So, all that to say, I got a phone call from my guy at 25th Street Recording, and they were able to get the masters up, and they're fine, so I'm not going to have to do anything to them. So in a couple of weeks, I'm actually going to digitize at a much higher rate, because I sat there and I started to basically capture the CD and prepared it for release on Spotify, and I kind of went, jackass. It's 16-bit 44.1. You got masters sitting in the other end of the house. Why don't you actually do a much higher bit rate than was done 30 years ago? I was like, oh, I could have had a master. All right, so the deal is that I got the news it's going to be that, and so we're going to remaster it. Then I'm going to relaunch that. In the midst, it gives me a little bit of breathing room putting together this other material. So I'm super, super excited. You can see a shadow there. Over yonder, now you're not going to be able to see it, are the amps that are kind of my amps for wrapping up these other albums. So that's kind of in process as well. So there's process happening, strategy. So I'm very excited to be able to share that with you. All right. Speaking of things I'm going to share with you, it is that time. The one, the only, the very special Chris's Questions. It's a funny thing. One of my favorite things is seeing somebody wearing one of those Gear Garage shirts. It's not because, I made some money there, because I don't look at the world in dollar cents. Arguably, that's a detriment, but that's just not my vibe. But it really warms my heart every time I see somebody wearing one of those shirts, because there's a point of connection. And seeing him holding the guitar there, it's just kind of like, oh, no, hold on, that's not it. Hold on, hold on, gosh darn it, there we go, Chris's Questions go after that. There we go. And I just love that. And, it's kind of cool. And look at that left hand position, by the way. Chris, very, very well done. Look at that articulation of the pinky. My man, my man. All right. So I also want to actually talk about another thing before I get into Chris's questions. I don't recall Joe Satriani ever mentioning this, and in all the photos I've seen of Joe, when he's sitting down, he's a right-legger. What I want to encourage you to do is you're kind of sitting and not doing what I was just doing there, and grab hold of the guitar underneath, the kind of the top of the neck there, and at the bottom of the body there, and lift the guitar up like that, and now gently place it over your right leg, and then place it back over your left leg, and feel the tension. Steve Greenleaf, hello. Chris, I am full of questions. I'm full of something too. Notice that tension in your right shoulder. So I'm 60. I don't know how it happened, but whatever. I'm 60 and I'm still here. So that's what happened. It's good news. But that tension in the right arm ultimately is going to be, if I were to practice like this, that ultimately means at some point I'm going to have a problem with the shoulder, most likely. And so getting the guitar where it just naturally kind of sits, and kind of if you kind of brought both hands together, that it kind of sits around the area where the pick is, and it's kind of there's a center point. Yes, the left arm goes out like this, but the idea is that's a natural kind of radius, if you will, out there. And so that hand position. The other thing is, per Chris's hand position there, as you're kind of coming up the neck, you kind of keep that hand position going like that, and there's a little gentle radius thing that's happening with the turning of the wrist like that, if you will. But I'm not doing this, and this is one of the things that gets people into trouble, and they lose the extension with those other fingers. So Yes, it is, and one that I'm very grateful for, my friend. Gray hair and all. It is a nice round number. In my latest demo, I'm talking about things being wide in the hips. So it happens. So in any case, all right. So the deal is, the hand position is actually really important. I want to encourage you as you sit, and if you're a right legger, it means that you're probably holding the guitar like this, but feel what it does to your shoulder and kind of go, what's that going to be like 20 years from now? Because at 80, I'm still going to be playing, and I'll be darned if I'm going to have a shoulder blown out and have to have shoulder surgery because I didn't keep it here. Petrucci's a left leg guy. To the best of what I can tell, both Vi and Satriani are right leg guys. But the deal is that this classical position here is a real win, and ultimately your body will thank you for it. So let me encourage you to give that a shot. All right, getting to Chris's questions, and they're always so good. I don't always get to them, but he is ever faithful. All right, so this is really speaking to my heart. One of the things that I'm doing with my students is I'm basically, although I'm a huge fan of all the modeling gear, this Tonex stuff, what it enables me to do is share my sounds with my students in a way that back when I studied with Joe, what would happen, you'll hear me pull the cable. What would happen, in most lessons is that, with the benefit of being able to take an hour lesson with Joe, usually towards the back half, we'd start playing some chord progression that Joe had come up with these crazy, very cool chords. And then you'd play the rhythm. He would solo. You get a chance to kind of watch him meander around the neck. And then he would hand you the cable. And so then you would get a chance to solo while he played the rhythm. And it was this very interactive process. And that was something that I brought into my in-person teaching that has been something I haven't been able to do online. So increasingly, that's going to be something I'm going to be doing. So per the first question here, which I really love, recording. If someone says, I just want to play and don't have anything to record, why buy the gear to record? I barely have time to practice. What a great question. I just like, and the fact that Chris is kind of one of my students is like a dagger to the heart, because Chris has gone out and bought, at my suggestion, not a small amount of recording gear, which means that, it's kind of like, that's like, it's not your failings as a son, it's my failings as a teacher, right? But the deal is that my being able to share tracks like this with tones like this, means that then what you can do is you can load them up in your DAW. There'll be stems, so you can turn different tracks on and off, so you can practice the rhythm, and practice recording the rhythm, so you get used to laying rhythm down and use that as a vehicle to train. It allows me to kind of go, hey, these are the chords that I was using. This is how I was thinking the bass note movement. This is what I was thinking. It allows us to have that vehicle. And then you can kind of go off and do that in a way that in a one-to-one lesson situation, once you were kind of done with that situation, that interaction evaporated, where in this particular case, it's kind of like the next best thing to be there, maybe even better. And then you start to document your ideas. Hold on. Sylvain, I missed you. Hey. Hi, thank you. Like that photo, dude. A pleasure. I don't know if we've met yet. Sylvain Sly Richard. So the cool thing about this is it means that literally by using Tonex and using, in my case, Pro Tools, my students and I can share these ideas back and forth. And so, Chris, to answer your question, when you've got something that inspires you to make music and gets you engaged in the platform, then you use it. It's kind of like using, Apple Music. That's what I've got this little loop going on. Once you find a way to integrate it into your process, it becomes part of your process, and it's fun. What a great question, though. And there's so much meat on them bones. I love that. How much time is needed to set up recording gear to record? After setting up a DAW, will other software be needed like drums? It's kind of like you got your pedal board, you got your guitar, and you got your amp. You got your DAW, you've got whatever device you're using to kind of amplify, quote unquote, your guitar going in there. I'm actually running through Tonex Pedal, the larger version. And then you've got drum programs like Easy Drummer or Superior Drummer that make it really easy to just find a drum pattern. And I have this one that's got a little star next to it, and I'm just drag and drop that one. In fact, every single one of the new Tonex, of the demos on the new Tonex video that I finally kicked out the door this morning, it's exactly the same drum pattern. Because it just works. And I just changed things up a little bit so you didn't really notice. It's like he's just using the same pattern. So you change the fills a little bit and nobody notices. It's the Sgt. Pepper beat, right? The other thing about getting inside the DAW there is after a while you're like, okay, well, that little kick drum pattern isn't what I want for the way that little progression is moving. And in so doing, then you kind of go, well, let me just move that one kick drum. And once you open that door to kind of going, okay, I'm now editing MIDI drums a little bit, it gets really fun. And it becomes part of your creative process. And so you just, once you kind of get in, you set up a new track, I'm in and up and running within 5 minutes. And so showing people how to do that's great. Again, these are just brilliant questions. Playing-wise, how do you switch from regular picking to a hybrid picking effortlessly? And so, it's a great question. So part of it is, this whole kind of, first of all, there is, let's see, where was the first, right, probably. So chords. Chords is probably the first place that I started kind of incorporating. And from there, so to answer your question, a great place to start would be then you're kind of off, kind of going, okay, pick and finger. 2 fingers. That's another common place that people can start as well. So then you just kind of are off to the races, and then you're kind of like, well, let me just not use the pick at all. And generally, it's kind of the opposing digits thing, kind of same thing you use to grab something like that. Every so often, that's thumb. I actually get instead of going thumb 1 2, I go thumb 2 1. No, and I'm going thumb 1 2. Now I'm thinking about it. And the thing about playing with the fingers, just the fingers. as long as we're going to have this conversation, tapping. Kind of falls into that same thing. And so Ed always kind of palm the pick and tap with the first finger. I kind of keep the pick with the thumb and the first finger. And that allows me to. Kind of effortlessly work between the. And in the process of using the fingers more. Uh-oh. Melissa Doppler's texting me. That's never a good sign. Oh, good. All right. Good. So, in any case, that's a great question. Very, very, very grooveliciously awesome. All right. Last question. Gear. Where do you place your compressor and boost pedals on your board? It's a great question. So one of the things is there is an amp here that I can't have on camera. I'm gritting my teeth. It's a prototype, and somehow it escaped the factory. I can't say what it is. I can't even picture it. But it's a really, really important part of one of the sounds that I'm trying to get on both albums. It's really, really close to the sounds. But what is it? Close, only really counts in horseshoes and hand grenades, right? The idea is that when it comes to finding the right sound, kind of my phrase these days, although this is not really a hand in glove, but analogy-wise, see, if the glove fits, something like that. Sorry, let's not go there. So I just couldn't get it, and the idea is with the various amps that I'm using, those two boogies back there, the one you can actually see right there and right there. Those are the 5-band boogie EQs that I've got running in the loop, because that is something that I found that I wanted to do, something that's very much in the boogie universe, where I could expand beyond the tone controls on the front of the amp and be able to shape the tone on the way from the preamp to the power amp. So that kind of is within the boundaries of it. What I don't and didn't want to do was become dependent on a pedal going into the front end of the amp, because if, you're on the way to a gig and the pedal gets lost, the power supply, blah, blah, blah. I was literally, 2 months ago doing my little acoustic gig, and the power supply on my pedal board died. Never had that happen. I plugged it in. I'm like, the lights aren't on and nobody's home. And I was like, this is a disaster. And I've never had it happen, but I'm like, oh, well, now that I've had it happen, you just kind of go, okay, be forewarned, and I've had stuff happen on the back line with amps. You're always ready. You have a hot swappable backup, which, with the pedal thing, I get, but, with your board, so I'm a little hesitant. But short story long, I ended up using the Solo Dallas Storm pedal, which has got both boost and drive and a limiter, which is a hard compressor. So basically that is a compressor where it above a certain level of decibels, it does not get any louder. And kind of collectively, I'm shaping the sound going into the front end of the amp and goosing the front end a little bit, but just kind of trying to get the blend of frequencies just right. So I'm using it like it was designed to be used, but to kind of tweak the circuit. And you know, it's kind of what I didn't want to do, but I was like, I know the pedal for the job. It's the right Swiss Army knife. And that kind of got me to the place where, well, Albert knows about this amp. He's the only guy. Because he's the one that saw it on Craigslist and told me about it. So Albert, by the way, I got it to work. Sorry, you sent me an email. It was after that in the midst of a crazy week. So the end result is that I meticulously documented the settings on the pedal. And so that happens with little pieces of tape like this, by the way. And it happens with scissors that are just like little slices. And I just kind of, though you can't see the desktop. By the way, I've got a top-down camera that I'm getting ready to set up here. In fact, today I should be getting one of those little things so I can have the counterbalance weight there. All that to say, generally, when I'm using a compressor, very beginning of the signal chain, unless I'm using one in a very unique way, and I've talked about this in the new video that dropped today, where things can get a little wide in the hips, you can use it later on in the signal chain to just squeeze things in. And it's an interesting thing about a compressor. It hits the transient, that first right there. But also, depending on the speed of the attack, you can also use it not just to get this guy, but you loosen up the speed of the attack. And it begins to grab the notes as they start to swell. Somebody's messaging me. And it kind of brings them in at the hips, if you will. That's the best way I can describe it. And the idea is that, you know, if you're, for example, going arm in arm with somebody trying to get through a doorway that's this big, you got to narrow yourselves at the hips there somehow. And that's where the compressor will do that. In terms of the boost, because of what I'm doing there, I'm doing a little bit of boosting to just kind of, and I'm also kind of adding some frequency information there that's allowing me to get the sound that I'm looking for. The other thing is, you know, an integral part of this is that, you know, the guitar makes a huge difference. Chris, you commented about the Pink Strat. You know, all the demos on the new Tonex video, on their new updated factory presets, I use the same guitar, so the palette would be the same. So all the presets wouldn't be tweaked for different guitars. So if somebody else, and I forgot to mention this in video, but you go to take those presets, then you just kind of, as you go to make them your own, the same thing you're going to do to one preset, so long as you're using the same guitar, will kind of be synonymous across all the different presets. With the exception of the Pink Strat, where this guitar just doesn't do what the Pink Strat does. It's just its own thing. So the point being is that different guitars interact with pedals differently. So the boost pedal, the boost, I will almost always put at the beginning of the signal chain. However, over there is a pedal called the underliner. It's not a pedal, it's a box, and that's it's a gig rig pedal. It's designed to go in a loop, and basically gives you 3 loop levels. It's a passive box. Everything is cut, and it's MIDI controllable. So one, it's bypassed, transparent. Then you have 2 volume controls that cut the level, such that basically you've got a 2 different lower levels. One that, if you will, is the rhythm on the same tone, but the level's super quiet. And then one that's maybe a little bit louder for kind of some fills or little riffs around when the vocalist is singing or something. And the other, when you take it out, put it in the bypass position, that's the loudest, that's your solo tone. And it basically takes the same tone and scales it down with giving you 3 different levels. And that lives in the effects loop. And that's a great place to do that. Also, so that is to say, and that's a great question because you remind me about this, the MXR micro amp version, whatever you're called. All right, it is hiding. In the midst of a studio clean, every so often you end up with little mountains of gear, and there are a couple little mountains of gear. They're in the process of everything's been kind of put together in one place. But underneath that, the micro amp was a pedal that I've used for 40 years. And I had a first one that didn't have an LED, then the later one had an LED, and I would put that in the loop of what at the time was a Randall RG80 amplifier, akin to the dime bag amp, but as opposed to the RG100. And what that enabled you to do was after, as opposed to doing something that's going to boost the input and hence the kind of the gain structure going into the preamp section, put in the effects loop. So basically just takes the sound of the preamp and boosts that on its way into the power amp section. And it worked really well. A little bit of tone coloration, but the new version of it has tone controls and it's really groovy. So that, as well as a graphic EQ in the loop, are a great way, as well as the underliner, are places that you wouldn't normally think to place those, or some people do, to be able to use them for boost. And then also kind of you shape them for if you want the tone to get, not just louder, but kind of sculpted a little bit, as potentially you go for something that where the lead, when you bring it up, sometimes the notes can be a little pokey on the top end with something that you had at a lower level that it worked perfectly. At louder levels, sometimes there are certain frequencies you just want to pull back a little bit, especially as it kind of works with how you're going to interact with the pick. All right, I have a rehearsal at 11 a.m., and I need to spend some time prepping for that. So I'm going to bid you a very fond adieu. I want to thank you for hanging out with me. It's always a pleasure. Have a very happy Easter. I hope the Easter Bunny has treated you well with lots of chocolates and various things. Don't forget to have your milk. And in any case, thanks so much for hanging out. I hope this has served you well. And my mission is to protect and to serve. Protect your dollar investment so when you buy gear, it's used well. And both the gear and your dollars, and also to serve you with content that is going to help you on your journey to being a better player and musician. Thank you. I'll see you next week. And by the way, a little later today, I will share this video to YouTube. If you get a chance, or organically, it's on it's on my YouTube. Share it on your Facebook if you get a chance. It would be a huge help. Thanks so much.